People think the Demogorgon is some weird fleshy monster with a flower mouth head. Don't know where that came from. Welcome to the Twisted Pint Tavern. Today we're visiting r/D&D to answer, what are the most wild takes you've seen about D&D? That it's the DM's duty to facilitate player action to the point where they always have an out no matter how stupid they act. Did something that would 100% very obviously result in death. Asked him twice if he was sure. He was set on it. Well, okay, you're level 2, you're alone, and you're gonna go and attack the king in a room of 20 of his loyal armed guards. You die immediately as half a dozen swords come flying out of their scabbards and penetrate your flimsy leather armor. He went off on me about how it was my job to always come up with a solution where he could get away, because that's how freeform storytelling works. That is not how freeform storytelling works. Your option of how to get away was him double checking with you so many times to see if you really wanted to piss off the entire courtroom. I've played in a D&D campaign that didn't feature characters. Instead, the game revolved entirely around world building. Yes, the DM and players still referred to it as an exciting West Marches D&D campaign. I stuck around for 2 sessions before realizing this. Then the replies, what did the session actually look like? What did you do? Roll to form a religion? Nat 1, and it's a cult. If you just want to sit down with your buddies and build a world and a story, I think that's awesome. I would not really call that D&D if all you're doing is the world building though. That's kind of just using dice to build a world for a book, which is cool, but it's not quite D&D. The Satanic Panic is still pretty alive where I am. A few people think you're actually a witch or trying to summon demons by playing D&D. Like, we're rolling dice Gloria. I can literally talk to people across the earth in an instant. That's not witchcraft to you? Get the fuck out of here with your 1980s dumbass. So for those of you who don't know, D&D, especially like way back when with the older editions, was undergoing what was called the Satanic Panic because a bunch of people thought that sitting around a table rolling dice with your friends and playing make-believe was a satanic ritual and was gonna curse you or summon a demon or some shit. Had a person once tell me that DMs should never knock a character unconscious without the player's permission because that's taking away the player's agency. No, not really. So here's something I do to resolve this in session 0 of my games is I tell people, you will go down. You can die. Like, that's an option in my games. And it's important to clarify that because some people really don't like that, even though that's a pretty core function of D&D is the risk of going down and losing a character. But even so, if you do something stupid or even just get overpowered in combat and get knocked out, like, you should assume that's a possibility and that's not taking away your agency. All combat is bad and boring and does nothing to make the game fun or interesting or add to the story. Also, the same friend is obsessed with having a +2 and up in every stat because they don't want to be weak. But in the same breath will tell me I shouldn't base roleplay on stats if I criticize them or have them make choices based on my character's strengths and weaknesses. And then this reply, a character's weaknesses are as important as their strengths, especially from a story standpoint. Absolutely, I was just having this conversation in my Discord last night. The way that I do stats is I will tell everyone when they roll, take your lowest number and make it a 9, take your highest number and make it an 18, unless they're already higher or lower than that. Because that way it guarantees everyone has something that they're really good at, and then it also guarantees everyone has something that they're not so good at. And a 9 is only a -1. But it still presents a weakness that is so much fun for a storytelling standpoint. Generally, the takes in terms of balance by people who have clearly not done any of the math to see what is stronger. There are certainly nuanced parts of the game that are very complex to compare, and damage output and damage taken isn't the only feature in the game or the end-all be-all. But you can objectively compare the damage output of 2 things and say this is worse, and sometimes significantly worse. Or the assumption that their way of playing the game is the only way to play the game, and anyone else's way of playing is wrong and not fun. It's always a bit baffling to be told that playing the game the way my friends and I have been playing it, and have been playing it that way and having fun for years, cannot result in a fun game. Balancing is tricky. There's a lot of people who think they can just throw something on paper and call it good, and that's how it starts. That's the first step in balancing and creating something that's homebrew. But there's so much more that goes into making sure it actually coexists with the existing rule set and doesn't become overpowered when put into contrast with other things, and there's just so much that goes into it. And then on the there's only one way to play the game, that's just objectively false. Some people play D&D like it's a war game. Some people never go into combat and rarely roll dice because they just sit around the table role-playing, and both of those are completely fine ways to play D&D. I've had someone say that Phantasmal Force doesn't have a saving throw. They proceeded to post the spell description, which described a saving throw being needed in the second sentence, and acted like they'd proven themselves right with that. All right, let me look this up. 5e Phantasmal Force. You can craft an illusion that takes root in the mind of a creature you can see within range. The target must make an intelligence saving throw. Second sentence, right there. Look, I mess things up myself when it comes to spells and abilities sometimes. I'll forget about saving throws or force a saving throw when there shouldn't be one. I mean, there's a ton of different things to remember, and you mess it up sometimes. But this is why you do your research. And then when you post proof against your point with the research, you don't try to twist it to still prove your point. People think the Demogorgon is some weird fleshy monster with a flower mouth head. Don't know where that came from. Yeah, I'll say that's a pretty strange thing, don't you think? Yeah, I'll see myself out. You know what monster I'm concerned with though? Waldor, the Tavern Mimic. You guys keep finding him hiding in each video, but he still runs off to hide in the next one. Throughout April, keep an eye out for him, and if you do find him, let me know in the Twisted Pint Tavern Discord server. The first person to find him in each video, then post a screenshot of him in the Where's Waldor channel, will get a point. At the end of the month, the 3 people with the highest number of points will receive the Mimic Hunter Discord role. A quick hint, he tends to only pop up for a short time and is pretty good at hiding. Good luck. It's a perfectly universal system. Like, no. It's a system very good for high combat heroic fantasy. It's decent at a few other things. It's relatively easy to homebrew for, but honestly, it's not that much more modular than a lot of other systems I've seen. If you want a Star Wars campaign, there's already dozens of Star Wars systems out there. Learn one of those instead of spending hours designing poorly balanced Star Wars homebrew. If you want a Cyberpunk game, Cyberpunk Red is a great system, and I've heard okay stuff about Shadowrun, etc. Look, I'm a D&D guy, I love D&D, I've been playing it for a long time, and it's even not the only role-playing system that I play, because yeah, I've been in Star Wars games, I've run apocalyptic-themed games. D&D can be modified, but it's not as modular as some people think it is. If you want a modular system, the one that we use is the 1980s TSR spy role-playing game called Top Secret. That one is really modular, but not the new one, the old one. I could do a whole different video on that. Anyway, the Gun Monk is actually a very viable way to play the monk and doesn't fall off as hard as other options. But saying it's the only way is wild. One I've heard was that you should completely disregard Tasha's because everything in it was broken. So, Gun Monk, yeah, sure it's viable, but so niche in different games. And also, everything in Tasha's is broken? I mean, yeah, Tasha's introduced a bit of power creep, but that doesn't mean you should just ban everything in it. That banning races makes you inherently a bad DM. Look man, I just don't want to rewrite a lot of stuff because someone was born with wings. I don't get a lot of time to plan. And then this reply, to be honest, in my experience, DMs who are willing to ban a few races for the sake of world building tend to run more interesting and immersive games. I don't tend to just outright ban most things when it comes to character creation. For the most part, if it's in the book, I allow it, but there does come some give and take depending on your setting. For example, a player race that can fly completely wrecks the majority of encounters unless you specifically plan around that one flying ability. So if a DM doesn't want to have to do that, I don't see them as a bad DM for advising players don't take that race. And that's going to conclude it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have not done so already. We're posting videos every Tuesday and Friday here at the Twisted Pint Tavern, and we have a fantastic Discord community that you can join with the link in the description. Anyway, keep an eye out for Waldor the Tavern Mimic, and be careful on your way out. Somebody spilled an alchemy jug and there is oil all over the place.